This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard, whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast. We have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show. This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by The Flow magazine. Since its inception, the focus of The Flow has been to provide a bond among members of the lampworking community. In every issue, you can enjoy great content with the hottest artists and cutting-edge techniques using the latest industry products. These features, along with the continuation of our Women in Glass edition, Glasscraft Emerging Artist Awards, inspiring gallery showcases, dynamic general interest articles, as well as health and safety information, make The Flow the leading international lampworking journal. For more information or to subscribe to The Flow, go to theflowmagazine.com. That's theflowmagazine.com. This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by Mountain Glass Arts. For the month of December 2016, Mountain Glass is offering their Boro sale. Troutman First Quality Rod at 30% off. Just put in the coupon code TAG at checkout. That's TAG. And don't forget that freight or sample packs do not apply to this sale. And for all you soft glass nerds, their Jewelry Making Essentials Kit are 25% off. Just put in the code JEWELRY at checkout. That's JEWELRY. And don't forget they'll be closed from December 24th through January 2nd of 2017 so they can spend time with their families and friends during the holiday season. For any comments, questions, or concerns, just go to mountainglass.com. That's mountainglass.com. Hey, what's happening? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode number 139. This is Jay Michael, your host, and thank you so much for tuning in today. With 17 years behind the torch, I am as excited as always to bring you conversations with artists, sharing their stories in hopes to inspire and entertain while helping you grow your business. And today is no exception. Today's guest is featuring Matty Pike, a.k.a. Matty Phunk, Canadian-based glass artist and engineer extraordinaire who currently has a studio up there where they teach classes at the Toronto Flameworking Studio and also works side by side with Nortel as they are going through the process of creating and getting ready to launch soon a new torch out there, which we get into a heavy discussion about. This interview, in a sense, is some technical talk, but mostly just kind of covering the basis of Matt's background and also getting into really the torch and Nortel and their evolution of this new torch called the Arrow that is coming out here soon. And all the links and things we talk about in this interview will be on the show notes for you, as well as we're going to do a little link for videos. It's actually called a remix. Which we get into in the discussion here. It's really, really fascinating, and I'm excited that this thing's coming out, not only because of the functionality of the way this torch runs, but also because of the price point. And wait till when you hear how much it costs. You are going to be excited, so just wait for that. Also wanted to go through and announce the winner of the last trivia question that we had, which the question was pertaining to my interview with D-Rock on what type of dog he had and what was his dog's name. And out of all the winners that we actually got the answers correctly, and we randomly chose one person, and the winner is Chelsea Dahlstrom, I believe is how you pronounce your last name. I apologize. Trapper Studio. And the answer was that he is a French Bulldog, and his name is Jackson. So congratulations, Chelsea. I will be sending you out an email, just a response so I can get your shipping information and get your prize out to you. And thanks for everybody again who sent in their answers to the question, and congratulations also for winning again, Chelsea. And next week we will be doing our next trivia question. I'm going to probably keep these down to every 2 weeks just because of my scheduling, and want to make sure I stay on top of this. As next year when the season starts around for the show, these will become weekly. But for right now I'm going to try and keep these paced out a little bit just so I don't forget about them and I gotta stay on top of this stuff because I got so much other things going on too. But want to make sure that you know that my focus is definitely this show and you, the audience, as well. So this has been a lot of fun getting these in. So definitely stay tuned for our next round of trivia questions coming out. And Chelsea just won herself a sticker pack from myself, as well as a $50 gift card to Mountain Glass. So congratulations. And other than that, I'm going to rock and roll out of here. Just enjoy this episode. Like I was saying a couple episodes back, I'm going to be doing a full episode talking about the upcoming online course series for the Wise Guy University online classes, which I'm pretty excited about. And we've already begun the filming of it, and just things are going pretty cool. It's a lot of work, and most of it I'm doing myself as I learn this process of video editing and what have you. My daughter, who's a rock star, she's 17 and knows a lot of the newer technology and editing and film stuff, and has been helping me with that. So I got to give a big shout out to my daughter, Canis, and her name is spelled Cannis. And she's definitely a super cool kid, very artsy-fartsy, and has a huge heart, and definitely digs that I do this show, and is excited for the community and likes to listen to the episodes and kind of share in the fun. So big thanks to her for helping me out, keep this ball rolling and this process a little smoother as I learn as I go, in a sense, kind of as we all do with our glass. So again, just you can check out Matty on the internet, interwebs. You can find him on Facebook, Matty Phunk. Also on Instagram and everything else. But again, I'll have all the links in the show notes, as well as some video and some links for the new torch. And also, don't forget, if you have not yet gone to iTunes and subscribed, or if you have a Droid, there's also other different ways to go about getting this podcast. Whether you can download the Stitcher app, a couple different variations of apps out there for downloading for the podcast. You can also go to wiseguymedia.com, and for this episode, it's wiseguymedia.com/139. And it would take you directly to Matty's page, which will have all his information and updates. And also, just before I forget, I wanted just to give a big thank you if you're new to the show for downloading this episode, just kind of new to turning in general. When we had JD on, his download numbers in the first 2 days of the post of the episode broke every record I've had so far to date with interviews with artists, and exponentially, like by 300%. It was mind-blowing and exciting to see it. And I'm assuming that hopefully if you're new and you came on through that interview, that you're still here listening to other episodes and other interviews and past ones as well. Definitely dig the downloads and the insights and the information. So if you're already to the show and you haven't yet done so, definitely subscribe to the show. It'll keep it so when new episodes post, they'll automatically be downloaded onto your phone. And then you can have it set up to where the show is actually deleted after you listen to it, which is one of the nice things with the way that the iPhone works. I think Stitcher is very similar to how they work too. You can have your downloaded episodes just deleted after you listen, and then you can go to the feed part of the app, and then you can go back to past episodes and whatever. Also, we are getting the website updated constantly here with new episodes as I'm rebuilding it. I have a big meeting next week with my web guys, and we're going to be getting this thing rocking and rolling as we also move forward with the classes and courses and online stuff. So we have all kind of fun things coming to you for 2017 as this show evolves and grows, and the Wise Guy brand gets bigger and bigger, and you all out there are supporting the show just from listening and downloading, so thank you for listening. I sincerely appreciate it. If you do find that you get lots of information and insights and entertain from this podcast, please go to iTunes and leave a review. And Stitcher now has it set up where you can leave a review there also. It definitely helps get the show noticed by iTunes or whatever platform the show is being hosted at. And especially through iTunes, since they seem to be the leader in all things podcasting right now. It helps to get the show up in the rankings in the categories. Right now we're in the arts and entertainment category, and also education and lifestyle. And the more downloads, the more reviews, the more write-ups on this show that you all leave, the higher ranking that this show gets, which then exposes our industry and community to an even broader audience internationally, as the international audience does continue to grow as well. And if you're listening to us outside of the States, again, thank you so much for downloading the show and taking your time out to listen to it. I know there's like over 250,000 podcasts out there now that you can download and listen to. Myself, I probably have about 50 shows I listen to just kind of randomly. And so thank you for choosing this one and downloading it. I hope I can continue to entertain you and not ramble on too much, which I'm doing right now. So I'm going to stop and get the hell out of here. So love you so much. Thanks for tuning in. info@wiseguyradio.com, info@wyzguyradio.com if you want to hit me up. Also, the bottom of each episode on the website at wiseguymedia.com has a comment section. You can leave a comment for the show. where we can keep this conversation going. So definitely go there and leave comments, and we'll keep these conversations going after each episode. So thanks again to Matty Phunk for coming on this episode, and thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time on the Wise Guy Radio Show. Love ya. Enjoy. Peace. Hey, what's up, Matty? How's it going, brother?
Doing great. How about you?
Pretty good, man. Welcome to the show. We got Matty Pike, also known as Matty Phunk, out there in the world of glass. And we are going to be talking about your career and your glass history, but also getting into Nortel and Nortel technology and some of the new torches that are coming out that I know we're all excited about. And the development's been going pretty good, and I can't wait to get these out there in the hands of the newbies, in a sense, and also us OGs. Because, I think as we move forward with technology, the torch technology, I think, is the most important part of it,
Absolutely.
So before I get all sidetracked here, if you want to get us started off by telling us your superhero origin story, how you were introduced to the torch, and then we will go from there, man.
I was originally introduced to the torch at a place called Toronto Art Glass, which was a glass studio that operated in downtown Toronto for a while. My first instructor was a Japanese guy named Wataru, who was here on a 2-year student visa, and he didn't speak too much English, so the lesson was more just watch and repeat kind of thing. And that was kind of when I started becoming more interested in the glass blowing aspect, as I originally started as a collecting glass blowing glass art in 2006.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, man, when you get exposed to someone that doesn't speak English well, but they can talk to you through their glass.
Yeah, it was just a really cool experience to have a lesson that kind of surpassed like language barrier like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a form of communication. I had an opportunity years ago. I had a studio. I was working with some guys, and we had a dude in from Poland. And from what I understand at the time, he actually held like one of the world records for like the largest sphere ever blown, like saw it in a hot shop, like hand blown wise. This guy was like 6'8", like he was a fucking like big Russian bear, kind of guy, and but made the tiniest little intricate little pieces out of these little spoons he was doing that had like, he'd probably spent an hour on each one of them. It was incredible watching this guy work, because you would never think this guy made these little tiny, it's like seeing a big muscle guy walking a little tiny dog, kind of thing. But his English was terrible, and we had a couple keywords that we understood, but we communicated through our glass, and it was like sign language, in a sense. It was really neat.
Absolutely.
So from there, did you get into taking some classes, or kind of start teaching yourself?
I started more playing around in the studio that they had while it was open there. I had a few months of just practicing making simple like shot glasses and dishes and stuff like that. And then the studio kind of closed down, so I was hopping back and forth in between a few friends' studios, like home studios and garage setups and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. While I was in school for business. And then when I finished my program, I started up the studio to have like a more reliable place for people to come and blow glass and learn and stuff like that.
Hell yeah. And that's when you got the Toronto Flameworking Studio going?
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you find like your business schooling has really helped you now with what you're doing?
It helps me in certain aspects. It kind of leaves a little bit open to interpretation, just with glass blowing and the glass industry being something that isn't really business oriented most of the time.
Yeah.
And it's just a very new type of industry, so it's not really something that you have a lot of frameworks to look at on how previous businesses are run and stuff.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. I'm glad you're saying that, 'cause that was part of my premise for doing the show, was just like seeing this huge influx of new glass artists coming in that have no business experience really, much less maybe have ever had a job because they're 19, 18 coming out of high school doing this, And I really felt like with my experience and having run other businesses in the past, working for companies and what have you, that it's so easy to run a small business when you're a glassblower. Just we don't have that much overhead, everything's pretty simple to calculate. So I've really been trying myself to like find ways to streamline certain business concepts with what we do, between keeping your inventory and running your taxes and that kind of stuff, because it's important, bro. As this industry grows, I'm sure the IRS is already on top of all of us, And you being in Canada, so you're you deal with a little bit different industry agency up there, but all of us here in the States, we got to deal with the horseshit of the IRS.
For sure, we have like Canada Revenue, which is similar, but it's just a very important thing to be able to manage like finances and like when you're thinking about a business, it comes down to like the overall, all of the aspects, when it like from marketing to finance and accounting and whatever it is. Customer service is a big one in the glass industry. Your reputation as a business, like your name is generally your brand as a glass blower. So your reputation and your customer service are directly related.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I think that's part of what I love the most about our industry is the relationships that we develop through the business side of it, and then also through the art of it. There's like these two different dynamics that we deal with, whether we're selling our glass or we're creating it with another artist. It's pretty sweet, and not always, I guess positive. Sometimes they don't work out, but for the most part, like you're saying, your name is definitely your reputation and how you conduct yourself in this industry. It's so easy to do the wrong thing one time and you're fucked,
Right.
Which sucks. I think our industry is also forgiving, but there's been some idiots out there that have pulled some shit that are like, they're blacklisted from our industry probably for the rest of their life,
Absolutely. But they're still blowing glass somewhere, making some glass, but nobody hears from them or sees their products anymore.
Yeah, or they're still being shady.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it sucks. So when you got the Toronto Flameworking Studio going, did you have a pretty like immediate response to it? Like people like, oh my God, what the hell is this kind of thing?
I had a pretty solid response initially, and then it kind of just grew from there a little bit. We have like option to rent workstations after you do some lessons, so it's something that people don't really have the opportunity to do anywhere else around here. Mm-hmm. There are some more traditional like hot shop furnace style glass blowing studios where you can go and take a lesson and learn how to make cups and vases and stuff. But they don't really rent out their studio for general use to like come back and play around kind of thing.
Do you find like the glass scene up there I'm sure it's probably different now, but when you started, was it more of the hot shop kind of based than it was lamp work?
It's definitely still mostly hot shop around here. There's not too many flameworking places compared to how many hot shop there are.
Oh, interesting.
But the flameworking like scene and stuff is definitely increasing pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed, especially like with the way the shops, like it seems like the shops up there are really helping move like the movement up there for you guys.
Absolutely. That the shops are what keep the glass artists fed and keep their rents paid and whatever. So if all the shops are buying local glass, then it definitely gives like a new ability for the glass artists to try to dedicate a lot more time.
Yeah, man, that's killer. Do you guys find like there's kind of getting off this little side here, but do you find like you have an issue with import, coming out of, China and India kind of crap coming in as much as we have here?
Absolutely. There's definitely, for certain products, it's a lot harder to sell. For example, like a simple spoon or something for much more than a Chinese pipe would sell for, just because they have the option of buying for such a small price.
Yeah, it's always frustrating when you go to a shop and they're like, well, I could buy this for 50 cents. I'm like, yeah. But I didn't make it.
They don't want to like take into consideration the conditions that piece was made under.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's why it's important for us to have these discussions, to continue this, education of the industry and the shops and stuff, because it's definitely important, man. There's so many new glass blowers out there that, are making China killers in a sense that there's no reason a shop should be buying anything other than what's local, unless, of course, they don't have access to it, I mean, if you got like a neighborhood that's got a bunch of ballers in there that are selling $10,000 rigs all day, you got you got to figure something out.
For sure.
Hell yeah, man. So, yeah, so how has the studio evolved, like in terms of the growth that you've had from students and workshops and what have you? Because I saw like you're doing classes now and a lot of fun stuff going on there.
Yeah, every so often we bring out artists from different places and generally the States so far to do workshops and demos and stuff like that. And that definitely helps to increase the interest, as well as helps the artists increase their skill vastly in a very short period of time. Like if there's like a 1-day demo or like a 2-day hands-on class or something, they can get an extreme amount of information from someone that has much more experience and everything behind their techniques. It's just a different level of learning.
Yeah, for sure. Do you still find though, like when the newbies come in, how intimidated they are at first from the torch, and then like it seems like 2 to 3 days later they're like they've been doing it forever, kind of thing?
Usually it takes a little bit longer than that, but we get a lot of people coming in for introduction lessons and stuff like that, and then a lot of the time they come back and rent workstations and practice or take further classes on techniques they're more interested in getting better at.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome that you offer that. It's so important, man, to get that foundation, because then once you get the foundation, then you have good habits, and then you can go whatever direction you want to go in. So to have that ability to offer the directions to go in is killer, especially to offer the that foundation, because it's what I was talking with you off the air yesterday. It's so important to have that strong, solid foundation in your technique, whatever anything in life really, especially pertaining to what we do. And to be able to learn from somebody that has experience and already has gone through all the bullshit of, cuts and burns and doing things the wrong way, to figure out the right way to do it and to teach, but also to have an instructor that actually can teach, is a pretty big deal too.
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference between a good glass artist and a good teacher. Yeah,
exactly. Do you do a lot of the instruction yourself, or do you outsource that?
I do some of the lessons. I have a local friend and artist named Max Yule that helps me with my lessons as well. And then we do workshops with artists that come into town for specifically to give a demo or a lesson. We've had recently Freddie Farron came out. We had Rashawn Jones and Robert Kishlow. We've had Kiva Ford come out, and Steve Bates and Strobel and stuff like that.
Nice.
Just to give a wide variety of different techniques and directions you can go in glass, just because there are so many paths you can take.
Yeah, man, it's kind of frustrating at times.
Yeah.
It's so hard, man. It's like, I want to do all of it. It's like being a kid. It's like, I want to be a firefighter and a weatherman and a doctor and race car driver. It's like, now I want to make rigs and sculptures and, everything. Fuck. Where's the time?
Yeah. You could spend 20 years just making wine goblets and stuff like that, or
yep.
You can just spend a lifetime on a very small number of techniques, or you can spend your time trying to get down as many techniques as possible. There's just so many ways to go about it.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of your technique, I guess, did you find like as you were learning the process, did you really like stay focused on one specific thing until you got it down and then you moved to the next thing, or did you like get it down and then do that for a while? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was kind of working on similar items, but different styles, I guess. Like tube work, I'd make like a ready pendant or shot glass or something, like coming out with a different end product, but with a similar process involved.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
And like right now, I've been working with mostly Zemfurico, like Latticino and Zemfurico cane and stuff like that.
Okay.
Just more inspired by like the older style of like Venetian glass blowing.
Hell yeah.
But done with like Boro on a much smaller scale, just because they can pull crazy amounts of cane, like 60, 80 feet of cane, whereas I can only pull a few feet at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's crazy when you go to hot shops and like I've done stringer pulls before and you like run across a 60-foot studio, you know.
Yeah.
it's pretty fun. But
I'm
like
definitely jealous.
You're right. I know, dude. It's crazy. Like even like when I'm over at Disney, when I'm working there in the Magic Kingdom, we have our hot shop in the back, and I'll go back there and watch the guys working, and it's just like I want to go back there and play with it, just because of how hot it is and how long it stays hot for. Just the things you can do. I mean, obviously it has its pros and cons, like flame working does too, working with Boro, but. Yeah, it's definitely nice because, like, we've all of us glass artists have had that video on our Facebook wall of the 65 or 80-year-old Venetian guy creating a horse in 30 seconds out of one gather. You know what I mean? And like we make these horses at Disney that Miguel Arribas does, and I think he's got them down to like an hour and a half, something like that.
Crazy.
And they're basically the same size as the one the guy's doing on the video. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's just those guys have every movement of the glass like calculated to exactly what they need done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and actually that's a good transition for the lesson part. When you're teaching classes and you have people coming in teaching classes, are you guys teaching like the move set? Because like something that I was introduced to, the concept of move sets. As long as I've been doing this for, I'm always learning, picking up new things, and taking a class with Joe Peters and Peter Muller. They kept using that term, what's the next move going to be? And they had like their drawings out so we could see what they were making, but then they were talking to us and letting us know what the next move was going to be, and they were explaining the whole concept of playing chess. And you really got to think ahead of what your move's going to be 10 steps down the road to make sure that everything lines up properly, And when you guys are teaching your classes, do you guys teach that same kind of philosophy with the steps of getting from A to Z in the proper way?
Absolutely. We definitely try to cover showing the whole process from beginning to end and explaining along the way why you're doing a certain process to help a further down the road part of it. Without knowing that, a lot of people get lost along the way just because they're trying to remember the individual steps rather than trying to see the big picture of how to get to the end product.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're only trying to remember one or two steps at a time instead of thinking about what those steps are actually trying to lead to, it's much harder to get the concept of everything when you're starting to work with glass, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially when you get to an issue and you can like figure out why that happened. So I used to hate when things would break, but I also liked it because I could like smash it up and look inside of it and see if there was like a weird edge or a bubble or something that shouldn't have been there to really figure out what not to do the next time around.
Absolutely.
Yeah, makes a big deal. So in terms of your own work, you started off doing shot glasses and some smaller stuff. Did you get into more functional work eventually, I guess?
A little bit. I still don't make too much functional work. But I've started making more like mini rigs and stuff like that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's just not a lot of time for me to make smaller production just because of running the studio and stuff like that. So I try to really enjoy the stuff that I'm making a lot more. I've been working on more pendants and stuff like that. I've been making like really small birds in cages kind of thing.
Oh, interesting.
Funny that you were mentioning a really big dude making small stuff, and that's kind of what I'm doing, I guess, right now.
Hell yeah.
Just tiny little birds in like a glass cage. I can send you some pictures for those as well.
Yeah, definitely like to see that. Are they like a networked kind of cage, or how are you doing the cages?
They're bars, I guess, welded to a base at the bottom and then welded to a loop at the top.
Okay.
So some of them are like Zamfirico bars, some of them are Dichro or color layered over another color, stuff like that.
Heck yeah. Yeah, and the terms you're using, I'll make sure I put some references to some pictures up, so people understand what that is.
Okay.
And I think that's part of what I love where our industry is right now, how we're really focused on bringing back the tradition of the Venetian glass. That's like, started all this from, 400 years ago or however long ago, these guys were doing this shit. It's so fascinating to see these, kind of evolved techniques that we can now use and borrow. And it's part of what again, with my gig at Disney, I love to do, making latticino and filigree canes and stuff, and really getting to talk to the audience, to the guests that are there asking about it, like what it is we're doing and the tradition behind it, especially like the millie work nowadays, dude. I mean, fuck, it's crazy.
Right.
I'm seeing these guys, some people crushing out some millies that are just like, I want to hang my torch up.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Millies and Marini. I collect those as well. There's just so many people killing it in Marini right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's really amazing. What so I guess that from the transition from teaching in classes, at what point then did you start to get involved with Nortel?
I'd say less than half a year after I opened the studio, I was trying to work with them on the burners, I guess. But almost as soon as I opened, they were a key supporter in my studio and myself. I work very closely with Nortel basically since the beginning for supplies and stuff like that, and they helped me a lot.
Hell yeah! Did they help like get your torches supplied and that kind of stuff for your classes?
Yeah, we got torches, a whole lot of Nortel torches, and we got connections with just a lot of people in the industry due to how great Gene and Peter have been to me. Gene and Peter are the two people. Peter owns Nortel, and Gene is the main manager there. So they've just been great supporters of everything I've been trying to do. They love the community here, and they've been trying to help grow it for a while. So they saw this as a great opportunity to help grow the local community.
Yeah, man, it sounds like a huge opportunity, especially like as a kind of a catalyst for you to get to grow, but also to grow, like you're saying, like the movement up there in Toronto. It's pretty gnarly. And myself, not having been to Canada, I do understand, like, your guys have, your areas are huge, the spaces are, Toronto's a pretty big place, so it's cool to expose a new generation and population of different people to a whole different side of glassblowing.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people that just have no concept of how the whole process works, and they're just blown away like a crazy magic trick when they see some stuff getting done for the first time. Yeah,
man, it is magic. Kids are like, "Where'd you go to school?" I'm like, "Oh, I learned where Harry Potter went to school." And they laugh. I think I'm fucking crazy, probably too.
Definitely, it seems like magic. It's another type of material, unlike anything else, for sure.
Yeah, man, it is, and it's such a weird stuff. Like, I always compare it to water. You just can't really. You can manipulate water, freezing it wise, but it's just neat to take this solution, fluid, solid, weird stuff and then turn it into whatever it is you're turning it into, and then it doesn't crack or break, and it lasts for 10,000 years.
Yeah.
It's just so fascinating. It's bringing on some of the guests I've had talking about like just the pure science of glass blowing. It's so fascinating. I mean, I could dive deep into that for 3 days of conversation. It's just endless, and it's the same way with the art. It's like there's so many different directions you can go between just teaching or playing or making pipes or making pendants or making beads, whatever. It's just this community's. It's cool to see the community growing, but also to see this community kind of becoming a unit, no matter what kind of medium you're working in. Not medium, but like what type of glass blowing you're doing. Seems like the furnace workers, some of them will look at you now and have appreciation for what you do. They don't give you the stink eye because you're a pipe maker.
Absolutely. A lot of them still will, unfortunately, but that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a jealousy thing. I don't understand it sometimes. I don't say it's a jealousy thing, but I don't know.
I feel like it's a lot tradition based, just like they were handed down like the craft from generally their parents or father. So they're just kind of set in tradition and don't want to break out of that.
Yeah, I can see that. Is that how like a lot of the furnace community up there is more
a lot of the furnace community I've seen in a lot of places is like that.
Yeah.
And as well as scientific, just for as far as boro and stuff like that goes. Mm-hmm. Even if working boro, a lot of scientific workers would never try to make a pipe, just based on their teachings. A lot of the time, they're second or third generation glass blowers, and they've just been taught not to make pipes.
Yeah, yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah, man. So I guess with the Nortel stuff, so they came in, they helped you guys get set up and stuff, and then you started the process of working side by side with them and developing, technology, I guess, through these guys. Because like my first torch I ever bought for myself personally was a little minor bench burner, and man, I raged that thing, bro. I made bubblers. I mean, I made all kind of crazy shit on this little last bead torch, and I always preached like when you start off, there's nothing worse you can do for yourself than jumping into like a kabuki or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
And to start off with that little minor bench burner not only gave me the respect for my medium, but also like made me really just slow the fuck down and just figure this massive weird stuff out and then create shapes with it. And now that Nortel, you got the Red Max Mafia and everything else out there, and these little groups that are growing, amongst the Nortel groups, which I think is awesome because for me, Nortel's got it quality-wise. Torch, I mean, shit, dude, they're workhorses like my Carlisle I run, but the Nortel has a different look, different model, different kind of technology, and kind of, I guess, in the sense of that, like, where did you come in with implementing the technology?
It was kind of a long process, but originally, I was talking about the concept with my buddy Max Yule, who I mentioned earlier, and he had hooked up a premix box to his Red Max. To make it a premix, and that was kind of the base of where everything went when started premixing the fuel going into a surface mix burner.
Huh.
So just like that concept got me thinking a lot more on how to utilize that in a better and possibly safer way than it was originally hooked up.
Uh-huh. So how would that work? Would the gas mix in the box and then go through the ports as oxygen and propane out of all the ports as a mix?
Right. So in a traditional surface mix burner, you have propane ports or fuel ports, which are generally surrounded by oxygen, surface mix oxygen at the face. And then this would add a premix box to the fuel input. So you'd be able to add premix oxygen or oxygen to the fuel before it comes out of the face. And then you'd be able to further mix it with surface mix oxygen once it's out of the face.
Interesting. So then you can really increase the heat.
Yeah, it runs a lot hotter for sure. It's just a much different style of flame and flame characteristic than most people are used to seeing. It's very similar, I guess, in somewhat in concept, to having the premix center port of your Carlisle CC running with the surface mix oxygen coming around it, but doing that for an entire burner instead of just the center port.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think myself, when I bought my Carlisle, I came and said like you should run the outside oxygen when you're running the center flame, just to for whatever I guess flame composition, but also to keep the torch cooler.
Right.
And that's something I never have done. I haven't. In 18 years of running this thing, I've never done it. I mean, I take it back. I have some time to time, depending on what I'm doing, just to quickly turn my propane on real quick. Because like I haven't even hooked up a foot pedal or anything to this torch ever. It's just been old school caveman style.
Nice.
And but yeah, man, I can definitely appreciate the idea of having that mixed flame ahead of time. Because premix is definitely, it penetrates the glass hotter, faster, everything. It's cleaner, it seems like, too, or can be.
Yeah, there's just a lot of benefits to having both. There's certain things surface mix is better for. There's certain things premix is better for, and then through a bunch of testing that we've done with the prototypes and stuff that we've gone through, there's like the combination flame, which we're kind of calling a remix flame, just because you're taking premix oxygen and remixing it with surface mix oxygen. It's kind of where we got that name from.
Yeah, it's cool.
But it's just like a new style of flame characteristic in between surface mix and premix. So you can set a different ratio to have it 80% surface mix and 20% premix, or 40-60 or 50-50 or something like that, just to get much different styles of flame than you'd normally be able to get out of a burner.
Fascinating. So through the development and research, you guys have like been able to fine tune, like in terms of like, say if you bought a torch from you guys now, some of the newer stuff, would it have a guide to tell you like, okay, this percentage is good for this type of reduction flame or this oxidized flame or work in certain colors? Like, do you guys have like a system down for that now?
There's a write-up that's been done so far of just like the different combinations of flame settings. With the knob configuration right now, it's going to take a little bit more time to get a full write-up on all of the combinations, just because there's 5 valves to the new torch, the
Wow.
new Arrow.
Yeah.
And it's more or less controlling 7 ports with 5 valves.
Huh.
So you have a lot of control over where your heat is and what type of heat is there.
Fascinating. Yeah, it seems like you guys will probably have like a baseline kind of calculation type of thing to set it, and then you can adjust how you're according to what you need.
Yeah. So like you were saying, the first torch you used was a Nortel Miner, and I'd say that goes for a good deal of people in the glass community. So they're already mostly familiar with a Nortel Miner. And the new torch, the Nortel Arrow, is built off of the Nortel Miner.
Oh, nice.
So there are flame settings that you can achieve the exact same flame as a Nortel Miner, just by setting a few of the valves to be an all-surface mix torch.
Wow. So it's almost like an all-in-one torch, or it is.
More or less. So you have a premix center port controlled separately. But if there's no premix oxygen coming through that, it's only a surface mix.
Huh, yeah, makes sense.
So you have a surface mix 1 port and a premix 1 port option in the center. And then you have surface mix and premix option on the outer.
Rad. Yeah, man, because I was having actually a conversation last night about the different torches and stuff, and it was, the debate of GTT versus Carlisle kind of deal and fuming. And Carlisles are awesome for fuming. I mean, like, fuck, man, the different ranges you can get with that center flame. So to be able to have a torch, we're like, the GTTs aren't, you can find it, but they're not always the easiest torch to fume with. And I know a lot of guys will have like a small hand torch just to use that to get their fume started. But to have a torch where you can just quickly adjust it to where you can get an awesome fume and then an awesome heat base on top of it, and you can work CADs and everything else, so you're not boiling your colors. Sounds something like we all need, or have needed.
For sure, it's definitely a lot of torches in one kind of thing. There's a lot of different range to it. So running just like a 1-port premix in the center would be amazing for fuming. And then running something like a 50-50 mix for premix and surface mix is really good for temperamental colors and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Cadmium specifically, I guess, would be temperamental, but it's just a very unique balance between the core penetrating heat and the surface heat. It just hits them both kind of at a similar time where your color doesn't want to mess up on you.
Yeah, man, that's too cool. So how long has this development been going on for the Arrow?
I think we're coming up on about 2 years for the development of the Arrow. It was originally just a concept that I had them weld together a minor head with a center port that could be controlled separately. And then I kind of did a Franken-torch build with some of their premix boxes and hand torches and stuff like that, just to get it to work proper. And then that was more or less just a proof of concept a couple years ago to show them the potential of what that type of a torch could do. And they've come a long way in refining the design and making things run cleaner and more efficiently and stuff like that.
Yeah, man, it sounds like it's you guys hit the fucking bullseye with it, because like I remember like running Red Maxes or like Mega Miners and stuff, and always wishing that it had the bigger flame had that center flame to it, just to add that extra, quick penetrating heat. Like it makes such a big difference, and to have to, go back and forth between your top torch and your bottom torch. It's not that it's inconvenient, but it's kind of inconvenient. I've learned to, like, before I even, I'll go turn my freaking top propane on and just like swipe a punny through the gas into my flame to ignite the top torch, back and forth kind of deal. And, I got it down pretty good the times I've worked on them before. And it was always fun. It was always a, interesting juggle to make it work. But
absolutely,
I'm definitely stoked to hear you guys are, innovating and changing ideas. It's the only way we're going to grow. It's the only way that, shit, who would have thought we'd be doing scientific glass blowing and, what we're doing now, even, just in the work we're doing. So the torches and the colors have to evolve along with the shit that we're pushing to get made.
Absolutely. A lot of the artists that are what we're calling test pilots now for the burners, a lot of them will say that it's been able to give them the ability to like push their work further in smaller detail and stuff like that. And just people that work on a variety of other torch companies' burners outside of Nortel, they're happy to put their torch away and work on this Nortel for a lot of their designs and techniques and stuff.
Yeah, it's killer. What's the diameter of the biggest flame on it?
It's built off of a Nortel miner right now.
Okay.
So it's just under about an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch is the flame width on it. But I guess the length of the flame would be about 2 feet on the high end.
Okay.
A little bit over 2 feet. So it's a much more driving style, penetrating heat to it, whereas like a normal Nortel miner wouldn't get anywhere close to even really much over a foot.
Yeah, they definitely have like a sweet spot to them.
And then it just starts to get very, very turbulent. Yeah,
it's interesting. It's a neat flame. It's a neat torch that'll work on. They're the whooshing air sound they create. It's like a little jet engine on your bench top for this little tiny torch when you're raging them. It's funny.
For sure. The new torch definitely sounds a lot more raging. You can hear it pumping out the premix oxygen. But with the one port center, it's relatively quiet unless you're running the premix on the outer as well.
Okay.
So for most of what you would do with this torch, I'd say a lot of the time you wouldn't be running premix on the outer. I guess some people would, depending on how quickly they want to try to get some stuff done. But it's without the premix on the outer, it's similar to like a miniaturized CC. So you have the one port premix in the center with a surface mix around it.
Okay. Yeah, it makes total sense.
And just like a one ring little surface mix around it. And then the next step of the process is to take this torch and put it inside of the red rocket.
Yeah, totally.
So it would more or less make a 3-stage Nortel out of the red rocket.
Hell yeah. So would you guys then want to run air through it also?
Compressed air, you could run, if it was all set up on different ports, you could run compressed air through the mixer.
Okay.
But it just, compressed air takes a different size ratio of mixer compared to mixing oxygen. So it would, if you wanted compressed air, it could be set up more for compressed air than oxygen, but it would work with the oxygen mixers.
Right.
So it's kind of already set up for air. If you wanted to use it, you would just need to add like a Y splitter or something.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is it like sound wise? Is it comparable to like a Carlisle? Because I know like I've kind of the joke around some studios is they don't let Carlisles in the studios because of how loud they are. Everybody's rocking these GTTs and they're like super quiet and
Right. It's a little bit louder. It's a little bit louder, but it's not like, I don't think, close to a CC.
Okay.
On the very high raging end of it, it could probably come close to a CC, but that's not really a flame that's going to get used a lot of the time.
Right. Yeah, man, because I know like when I was first running my CC, it was like, I knew that it was too noisy, but I didn't understand it. I mean, it was probably 8-9 years of using it where, I'm just raging this thing, and then really started to take my time and experiment with the flame properties. And, if I can hear it raging, then I know it's not that I'm working it too hot, but I'm just, I can back it off just a smidge, and that it turns into a nice, soft, quiet torch that's still hot as hell. But I liked what you're talking about, though. I think the concept of what you guys have going on is pretty rad. Is it going to be, because I think Nortel price-wise is also, for our community, is huge. I think it's a very affordable torch. It's not that it's cheap, it's just that it's affordable. If you're getting started, you can't, instead of dropping $1,600 on something, you can drop maybe $350, maybe $500, and get a super sweet, torch for yourself.
Like this new Nortel torch is definitely like the most complicated torch that they're making right now, because it's somewhat 3 torches built into one.
Mm-hmm.
Like just operation-wise and manufacturing-wise, it's essentially similar to building 3 torches.
Wow.
So I believe the price is going to be $565 for this burner, which is still relatively reasonable for what it can accomplish.
Yeah, shit, I'll take 2.
That's awesome for sure. I'd be happy to get you some.
Hell yeah.
Just we're working down the pre-order list right now and getting more burners built on a regular basis. So I'd be happy to add you to that for sure.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I would love to try one out because I just watching Rashawn and a couple other cats out there playing with them. It's fun to see.
Absolutely. It's an interesting burner for consumption wise as well, because you were saying with the oxygen, you just did the oxygen generator interview. And for this burner, I have no problem running it on a concentrator to get extremely hot flames and stuff like that. And it just works on very low pressure if you need it to, low volume if you need it to. It's very, very efficient torch for the amount of heat that you'd be able to get out of it.
Hell yeah. Do you guys have like a revealing kind of party, a kind of plan for this thing? Like a launch?
We're working on it. I need probably that'll be after we deal with all of the pre-order lists, and then it'll be available for just regular ordering without pre-order.
Yeah.
In stock.
So are you personally involved in the manufacturing process as well?
I am. I help assemble a lot of the parts, and I help test for problems with the flame. People at Nortel don't typically work glass, so they're really good at manufacturing burners, but when it comes to seeing an issue with a flame that might cause a problem for a glass blower, they're not too knowledgeable for that. So if there's a small issue with something, I point it out to them and try to help them fix the issues that come up. We've had to work through a lot of the issues just with premixing the oxygen to get like a very stable flame. A lot of premix flames are really unstable and unpredictable. So to be able to really dial that in took a lot of doing. And I just help with like putting together parts and pieces to get torches built for getting sent out.
Yeah, man. And that's important to have that, like the company I work for, part of something that we talk about there is, having someone that's actually an experienced glass artist in meetings and in developmental stuff or product lines. And, because a lot of times things look awesome on paper and then you try to put it together and then you're like, okay, why isn't this working? And to have an experienced person like yourself to help to really figure out the nitty gritty bullshit, and work out the bugs. It's so important.
Absolutely. For sure. It's been a wild ride, but we're doing pretty good right now. I feel bad for the people that have been waiting like on the list. I'm definitely trying my hardest to get them their burners as soon as possible. I just want these in more hands, getting tested and getting more feedback on them. Yeah,
man. Yeah, it'd be fun to bring one of these to work and bring it on stage. I think just the fact that like the torch itself looks awesome, like just the overall design, like that you guys are calling it the Arrow, and it has kind of this, old school kind of crossbow kind of crazy, look to it. It's freaking rad.
I'm glad you like it, for sure. Nortel is not generally known for the aesthetics.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, they're more function over form than anything, which is huge, But then, like, I remember when GTT came out for the first time, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, what are these fucking lightsabers these guys are making?" And then I saw your thing, and it was kind of funny because my wife, she's loves to come home. She's a art teacher, so like at the end of the day, she wants to come home and have a glass of wine and relax and watch some Netflix or whatever. And she's been into like Arrow and the shows lately on Netflix. And I was watching Arrow one day and I came across some posts of, I think it was about 6 months ago when you guys were starting to really put out some of the pictures of the torch. And I saw the Arrow while I was watching the Arrow, and I was like, dude, this thing is fucking awesome. Like there was a part in the show where he was like opening this case of all these old, like 300-year-old crossbows and weapons and stuff. And that torch looked very similar to a weapon that he had on the show. And I was like, this is like, timing was just kind of weird, but I'm all about aesthetic and design and the looks of engine and the engineering of it also. So I think what you guys are doing is it's pretty badass, man. Because there's nothing worse than I don't know. It's like I'm all about having a pretty car and to drive around in some kind of weird whatever doesn't look nice, but it runs great. It's important, but sometimes aesthetics are to be superficial, I guess. I don't know where I'm going with that one.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, function is definitely more important, but it's not like your continually like completely discounting how something looks.
Mm-hmm.
Like the looks play into it a little bit, and we definitely tried to make this look as nice as possible while still using the general framework we needed to make everything function properly.
Hell yeah. How's the heat on these things, like in terms of the radiant heat, I guess, that the torch itself puts off?
The radiant heat, the torch doesn't generally get very hot.
Cool.
It's a Nortel minor, so the barrel is relatively small, and the surface mix oxygen coming out can generally keep the torch at a point where you can put your finger on it just underneath like the face or whatever, and it doesn't really get too hot. So the radiant heat doesn't really have much of a problem with the Arrow itself.
Nice. Are you guys finding that? Is there any issues with people overworking these torches? You know, because like GTTs are like, for me, I don't want to necessarily get one because I work really hard and hot and fast with what I do, and I'm concerned I might melt the face off one day. You know, even though they're awesome torches, but are you guys finding like yours are more efficient and durable?
The design is definitely really durable, just as long as it's being run properly, I guess. So like the GTT has the blue knob, which you're supposed to keep on to stop it from overheating, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the similar situation on this torch would be just keeping surface mix oxygen on. So if you run it completely as a premix burner with absolutely no surface mix oxygen, it can overheat the burner. But even just having a slight bit of surface mix oxygen cracked can help stop that.
Yeah, and that's a rule of thumb, I guess, for torches in general. Because like I said, I probably should run my outside oxygen on my CC, just even a little bit, just to have some come out. But I'm always thinking like that air coming out is hitting the surface of my glass, which is potentially causing it to cool down the areas that I don't want it to cool down.
It's not quite as bad for just running the center port on the CC or on the Arrow. Like you could run just a premix center port, but if you're running a premix on the outer without any surface mix oxygen, it will definitely overheat the burner.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the heat in premix goes further back into the torch. Like if you have a premix hand torch, your tip gets generally pretty hot.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So it's kind of similar to having two premix burners and a surface mix burner built into a single head.
Hell yeah. So what's the average turnaround you guys finding on the production side?
That's a little bit harder right now. They're kind of just working really hard on getting as many done as soon as possible. They're tweaking small things along in the process, which isn't really helping to get a lot of large-scale production made. Mm-hmm. We're kind of just making like 2 or 3 at a time right now, which is a much slower process. But really trying to make sure all the ones that are going out work as good as they can possibly be.
Yeah, it's smart. Yeah, because you got to have your beta test group, like you guys have. So it's good that you have that. And now you can fine tune those and what they're, what they're coming back with their critiques and stuff, and
right.
And then get that manufacturing down to a science, so it just becomes assembly line kind of in a sense, but still the quality is still there, which is, it's understandable. You guys can't just crank these things out and just everybody gets these torches and all of a sudden they look like shit or don't work properly, and then it'll ruin it, immediately.
Yeah, like it's just much more important that each one works exactly how it's supposed to than getting a mass production made and having problems with 30 or 40% of them and whatever.
Yeah.
So we're definitely trying to nail that down. There's people like Rashawn and Freddie Farron and Pete Hess that are trying it out in the Boro world and test driving kind of the new design. And then Jed Hannay, who is the owner of Double Helix, is trying it out on a bunch of his soft glass, and he's really loving it.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you next. That's a good question, a good way to transition, because I know a lot of our audience are soft glass and bead makers and stuff, and I was kind of thinking that same thing. Being the miner bench burner is more or less a bead torch, and so to have that miner foundation for this torch, it seems like it's going to be feasible for people to use it for doing beads and soft glass and Moretti and different things.
Absolutely. And just a lot of the people working on a miner, specifically making beads and doing smaller soft glass work, a lot of them are already set up on a concentrator, and they don't really have the interest or the ability in switching to tanks for more heat out of their torch. So to be able to run the same concentrator and get just much more heat out of it with a different burner that's very similar to what they already know is just a very, very good transition for them.
Yeah, it's killer. Yeah, because then they can upgrade to that bigger torch and then get comfortable with working a hotter, bigger torch, and then maybe transition into boro. Because I know Rashawn's always doing like his from soft glass beads to boro beads, kind of get people to try making boro beads.
Mm-hmm.
And even though a minor bench burner, you could totally do it with that, but to have this bigger, similar flame property torch, to get these folks to try some bigger stuff, it's pretty cool. It's pretty good stuff. I like it. Do you guys find, like, I mean, I know I hate to jump into the future with it, but are you guys like thinking like what's the next upgrade to the Arrow?
That would be putting it inside of the Red Rocket.
Okay.
To make basically a much bigger outer ring around a very versatile center.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time people think of like a 3-stage burner as having more range on the outermost ring. But what that burner would do is give you much more detail on the smaller end, having the control of a 1-port and a multi-port small torch, and then having your 2 rings of big driving or big fluffy around that.
Yeah.
We would be putting the remix concept on that outer fuel as well. So it would be much more driving big flame compared to just the standard red rocket.
Hell yeah. Yeah, man, it sounds awesome. Yeah, get up to like a 32 or 40 mil size flame.
I believe the rocket with the remix on it has about a 40 mil flame.
Okay. And
then the Red Max with the remix on it has about a 30 mil flame.
Okay. Hell yeah. Do you guys think you'll ever have that be like a, could you have your torch converted, I guess, in a sense? Like if you had a Red Max, could you have like, a conversion kit kind of gimmick for it, or it's a full rebuild?
To put a center torch inside would be a complete rebuild.
Yeah.
But I think there's like an upgrade that they'd like to do to swap out the faceplate of the Red Max to be able to take the remix heat.
Okay.
And Rashawn has one of those that he just got in the mail a couple days ago, I believe, that has a remix concept on the full Red Max flame.
Interesting.
So it gives you the ability to have a full surface mix Red Max like you're used to, and then to use it as kind of a heat boost or like an oxygen boost with the premix there.
Yeah, totally. I could definitely see that. Because like I was saying, that was my only complaint about working the Red Max or the Mega Miners and those guys was just like that bigger torch. It's a nice heat, but it doesn't seem to really penetrate and get the molecule structure of the glass as active as fast as you necessarily would want it to be, which is not always a bad thing. I mean, like saying before, it makes you slow down and learn your medium. But
right.
To be able to have that remix in there and then really get that shit hot, especially if you're like a marble maker or making millies, like we talked about, pre-show, the millies and stuff, and when you're making millies, you have a gigantic mass of shit you're working with. That's all color, and it's all working differently. It's like, you got to be able to keep your core hot while you're doing it, and some torches don't seem to have enough penetrating heat base to really get to the center and keep your core hot.
For sure. I guess there's one like distinction I can make that some people seem to be having a bit of confusion with. A lot of people are looking at the remix design and calling it a Nortel triple mix, which is somewhat inaccurate and misleading.
Mm-hmm.
Like the triple mix design is GTT's concept, and that concept is built around an all surface mix. So there's no premix in a triple mix design from GTT.
Okay.
The way the GTTs work is there's a center port, which is your blue knob, that's surrounded by fuel, which is your red knob, and then that is surrounded by another ring, which is your green knob. So it's 3 outputs per port of all surface mix.
Oh, interesting. I've always wondered that.
So the difference here is that there's no separation between the ports for the remix. The oxygen's coming out the exact same ports as the fuel is, because it's being premixed within the torch to come out the fuel output.
Right.
So it's not a triple mix design, which is a GTT concept. That's why we're calling it a remix, because it's actually taking premixed oxygen and remixing it with surface mix oxygen.
Yeah, and that's smart too, because like I said, man, like we had last week I was sick and I had to call out to work, and we got a Phantom that we run off of one of our shops, and I had one of our guys came in who's been on the torch for maybe a year, but does mostly soft glass, working a small torch, and I tried walking him through over the phone on how to set the torch up properly and work it, and I had him send me some pictures and some video, and everything looked great, and then come to find out he ended up melting the face. Closing a couple ports off just from working it too hot, not really understanding and knowing, kind of thing. Right. And so it's definitely important to have something set up to where anybody that comes in, whether you're teaching a class of newbies or experienced glass artists, that can come in and turn it on and be able to work this torch and not have to worry about melting the face off or certain flame concepts and properties. Because it seems like this torch is super versatile, like just the properties alone of the flame mix, but then also, like you're saying, you can run off of concentrated systems, you can run low pressures, you can work CADs or fume work. I mean, it's like, dude, it's fucking awesome. I love it.
Thank you, for sure. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, it's super smart, man.
Awesome. It's for a lot of the people working Boro, they're just kind of waiting until that's in the bigger torch, like the red rocket, just because for a lot of the process, like making larger hollow vessels or something, you just need that bigger heat for a lot of the process.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, like when you get into making glasses and stuff, you don't need like a super hot penetrating heat. You need like a nice, soft, even, consistent heat base. So when you get your glass just hot enough, you can blow some air into it and shape out a cup,
right,
and not worry about melting it and losing shape. But then you can also, like you're saying, you can crank the shit out of it and melt down some massive glass.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Just the arrow alone can heat up a pretty thick piece of glass. It's pretty surprising. So just the rocket with the remix on that outer flame is a next level of heat.
Yeah, it's killer. Do you have any kind of like a demo video you could send me that I could put on your page?
I believe I have a few videos I can send you some links for.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
For sure. There's like the Facebook group and stuff for it as well. There's some videos and pictures in there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely have those links in there. Yeah, because I like to definitely try to embed some video into your post so people can see this. Because it just takes one little concept and idea like this to really change the industry. And I mean, dude, this thing's a game changer.
I'm glad you like it, for sure. There's it's just the next level of control that you can get with the type of heat. You can get very, very small and pinpoint, like the center port can get as small as just like a little one port hand torch tip, or it can get more or less as long as like a CC center port. So it's just a lot of range even within just the center port alone before you start adding the ring around it and that having both surface mix and premix options to it.
Yeah. It seems too like this would be really good for like if it could be converted into a hand torch, just the scale and the size of it for working in a hot shop, or if you're like, Marcel and those crazy assholes out there out the west that are making all that crazy shit out of Boro. I mean, I'm blown away, dude, by the size of like their Project 33 stuff they're doing. Like, oh my God. It's crazy Boro stuff, but to have a hand torch that you could actually not worry about fucking your color up because of the mix of the color or the flame, I think it'd be huge because I know a lot of times, like I'll go in with my hand torch. I have my little Smith, but I also have like a National that I use with a little bit bigger flame. And there's times where that National, because of the mixture, it definitely will bring out some metals in my color that I don't want, and I have to go back and burn it back off again or something,
Right.
So to have a torch that could be used as a hand torch, even like that, it's.
So that kind of brings me to the base that we have designed for this torch as well. It's kind of a new style of base that Nortel hasn't produced before, but it's similar. I don't know if you know the Mini Mylan torch.
No.
It's an all premix torch that they do that has a ball swivel that the torch is mounted on.
Huh.
So it kind of has a lot more range for which direction you can actually point the torch.
Like a ball and post kind of concept?
Yeah, it's like a 360-degree ball swivel kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, ball and post. But like it's also on two arms that come up from the base. So it can go from like a sitting height at like 4.5 inches off the bench to a standing height of about 14 inches off the bench.
Whoa.
So you just have a lot of range within just the base without having to add like a cinder block or something like that. And it kind of just pivots and can go up that high. And then at the center point, there's also somewhat of a quick release for the torch to become a hand torch when you need it.
Man, that's killer.
So it's like the knob placement could be more designed for like an ergonomic hand torch style, but the base has accommodated for being able to turn it into a hand torch if you need it real quick.
Yeah, man, I think it's fun talk. I'm all about this technology, especially as all these new people are coming in and getting exposed to all these varieties of different tools they can use, and to be able to just come to this one piece of equipment that covers almost all bases, especially as an introductory type of thing. It's a pretty big deal.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get it into more hands for trials and reviews and stuff like that.
Are you guys using them in any of your classes at all?
I show them to some people, but it's a little bit too complicated for like an introduction class. Generally we try to start them out on like a traditional Nortel, usually a mid-range plus. So it has like the top torch, which is a minor, and then the bottom mid-range torch. But like once they get more familiar, I've shown a few of the people. I have one of my studio renters using it pretty much on the regular now. And then my other renter uses Herbert Arnold. So it's a little bit hard to compete with a 40 mil at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's a big ass torch. Jesus.
Yeah.
I see these 50 mil Herbies going out there. I'm like, oh my God. Burn a building down with that thing.
They're beautiful torches for sure, but they also cost a little bit more.
Yeah, like 6 or 7 times more. But the guys that are using those things nowadays they're paying for them. It seems like in the first piece they make off of it.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of great people making stuff on them, but there's just all sorts of talented artists working on a number of torches. There's people that still work on a national hand torch that's bench mounted. Yeah. There's people working on Red Maxes that make amazing, beautiful pieces of work. Yeah, it's such a big range. like the Carlisle CC has held it down for a long time as the main scientific torch. And just everybody swears by their torch for whatever their process is most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, man, I've always sworn about my Carlisle. It's just because I've had it and been using it for almost 18 years nonstop. You know, it's got its clogged ports and what have you, but she runs like a champ. May not look pretty, but man, she makes.
I'm excited for you to try the Arrow. I think it's got some characteristics that are very similar to the CC on a much smaller scale, but it's just a lot more versatile for being able to set different flame settings and flame characteristics and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's part of what I've been digging with the gig over at Disney. I keep bringing it up, I know, but just the way it's set up, like every studio space we have has a different torch. And we recently just got a Bethlehem Bravo in at the shop that I'm mostly working at, and Susan, who works with me there, she does all of our jewelry and soft glass stuff, so she can use that for the soft glass. And then I come in there and I rage that torch as hot as I possibly can in a safe manner, so I don't destroy it. But it still doesn't. It still it reminds me of like a Red Max with the top torch inside the center. You know, them two mixed together, but it's still just not quite enough penetrating heat. A focus like hard. It's kind of like how they what's it called? Like the bigger Bethlehems, you know, like they're softer, bushier, you know, kind of deals.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm all about that laser focused, even if it's like a 25 mil size flame. You know, it's nice to have that nice concentration of heat to just blast through whatever you got to blast through.
Absolutely. That definitely comes in handy with the remix flame that we got. It's just you can use that all surface mix, fluffy and bushy flame for a nice like soft soaking heat, or you can just turn on the premix and get like a really laser driving flame to it.
Yeah, it's killer. And I hope those that are listening are not getting bored by our shop talk rhetoric here. But I think it's fascinating, you know, because you know there's so much more involved than just getting in your studio and turning your torch on. You know, you got to really know what the hell your torch is doing to make it the most efficient way, and also it's financially wise for yourself to understand how to use your gases properly, so you're not blowing through all these tanks so fast.
Absolutely. Just the efficiency of your burner can play a big part in how much you have to charge for your end product, even. Yeah,
especially with guys and gals that live in like Alaska and Hawaii that are paying like $900 for a tank of liquid, you know, or some crazy shit. They could run off a K tank that might last them 2 days or something like that, you know, running on these torches.
Yeah, but the K tank prices aren't much better in places like that either way.
Yeah, that's true.
So just being able to run something on a concentrator can really make or break your price line there.
Yeah, for sure. Because I know, like talking with Jupiter Nielsen, he runs off a home system like that, just because the gas in Hawaii is like outrageous.
Right.
You know, it's crazy. So kind of getting to the glass talk a little bit more too. Like, how's the glass scene up there growing? I mean, I know we kind of gotten it before, but like, I guess the more of the functional scene, because I've been, you know, we talk about the shops and stuff supporting the industry and some of the import stuff coming in, but like, you guys seem to be growing a pretty good sized community up there.
Yeah, there's a good community. The shops are definitely helping with that. There's some really nice shops around here that are supporting the local artists. There's just like, I guess, Culture Rising, Higher Society, and Toronto Hemp Company. It's just a lot of good shops that are down to support the local artists and help them push themselves to create better and more intricate pieces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's also the collector community that's growing. So instead of just selling directly to shops, there's also the opportunity to sell directly to collectors who are local and appreciate the work and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's killer, because I know, like, you know, following through the social media feeds through the years, you know, seeing a lot of you guys coming down into the States to do shows or to teach classes, And I was kind of wondering then if it was because the support up there isn't as affluent as it is down here, but it seems like it's the same. You guys are just spread out a little thinner, I guess, in a sense. It's not as concentrated here as it, like it is here. I mean, it's crazy, man. Going like my area, we had like 4 of us, I think, probably for like the first 10 years, and now there's like, 1,000 little glass blowers running around town.
For sure. We're also getting some good support from the States. Like there's a lot of Americans that will support the Canadian artists, even though like it's somewhat local. It's just not supporting Chinese.
Yeah, it's import, but it's not import.
Yeah. It's a good way to do it, and a lot of the time, just with the exchange rate between American and Canadian, it works out well for them a lot of the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I never thought about that. Yeah, so how are the laws and stuff you guys dealing with, like paraphernalia laws and stuff?
It's not too bad. Just I don't know. Sometimes something will get like seized in the mail, I guess. But most of the time they're not too concerned with it. They're not really knocking down head shops and stuff like that to put them out of business or anything.
Cool.
It's pretty relaxed right now, but you never know what the future holds, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I know like here, like we just got medical here in Florida, and they're leaving it up to the states to decide their laws instead of right now going federally, so everybody's covered. But
right.
It seems like with following the Canada politics over the years, it goes from being liberal to conservative to just like us here. You never know who's in office that's going to potentially change laws overnight.
Or who's going to keep their word once they get into office.
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly. That's why I don't listen to any of that shit. It's like I'll base my reaction on your action.
Pretty much.
Instead of wasting my time getting all pissed off about everything else going on. I got enough shit to worry about. Like I'm sure you do too, man, developing torches for all of us.
Yeah. It's a fun process, though, for sure.
Hell yeah.
I get to work with Peter, and Peter's 87 years old. So he's rocking out pretty hard. He works crazy hours and puts in a lot of effort for running that company.
Yeah, I could imagine. So is he more of like an engineer kind of brain?
Yeah, he's an engineer. He's a really good engineer for sure. But he's like the mind behind a lot of Nortel's designs or all of Nortel's designs and the whole company and stuff.
Hell yeah.
I guess they established as Nortel in like 1967 or something.
Wow.
So they've been around a while, and Peter knows torches and knows the industry really, really well. I'm sure he's had a lot of people come to him over the years saying, I have a new idea, and I think it could be a cool idea, but not a lot of people have actually put the time in to sit down with him and work on the development through the process, which he really needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to have the experience from the user to understand how to create the tool to make it work.
Right.
For sure. Yeah, that's cool that you're doing that, man, because, you're literally putting yourself out there for this whole, internationally for the whole industry and the community for this, development, these new product lines. So definitely hats off to you, brother.
Thank you very much, for sure. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's fun too, man, because I know you're a lot younger than me, so it's fun doing these talks and interviews with you guys that are like half my age and seeing like where you are in your career and developing where you are and compared to where I was at your age, just because of, all of us old guys that have gone through this shit and had to learn on our own, to where your generation, you had some support to get you through the rough spots to accelerate your knowledge. And now you take that accelerated knowledge and now you're like, coming up with all this new shit, which is just, I can't keep up with it sometimes. That's why I go back to making rapping rakes or something. Some bullshit.
The classics will always be there.
Yeah, dude. I know. I've actually had an order for one of my shops recently, and it was an old catalog of mine that I had from 5 years ago. And yeah, we're going through your catalog and we're gonna place an order. And this is 6 months ago that I'm not a slacker, just my schedule's so fucking crazy. But I've been wrapping it up, and it's been fun because it's all the stuff I made like 10 years ago that I haven't made in years. So like old wrap and rake bubblers and production stuff. To revisit that now, this much time later down my evolution of my glass it's been a blast, and it's also helped me too with launching these the new courses I'm launching at the first of the year, to go through those stumbling blocks and the processes of creating the older stuff. So now I can remember what I'm taking notes and videos and stuff as I'm going through it to revisit those stumbling blocks, I guess, in a sense, and share them.
That's awesome for sure.
It's a lot of fun. So. Yeah, man. Well, I think this is a good transition for us to take a quick break and thank our sponsors, and then we'll come back, and it'll be time for us to crash the kiln.
Cool.
This segment's brought to you by Mountain Glass and Wise Guy Radio. As a big thank you to you, the listener, Mountain Glass is offering an exclusive sale for listeners, 35% off North Star for the entire month of December 2016. When you go to checkout, just put in the code WNS. That's WNS at checkout, and you'll receive 35% off North Star First Quality Rods. And for any other questions or concerns, just go to mountainglass.com. That's mountainglass.com. All right, man. Well, let's go ahead and get into Crashing the Kiln here. And the Crashing the Kiln round consists of about 6 questions. And if you want to give me a 30 to 60-second answer on them, you can also expound upon your answers, which always happens. And the first question I always like to ask, which is sort of tricky, is if there is any living glass artist that you had not yet worked with, who would it be and why?
I'd say probably Banjo. He was just one of the biggest inspirations for me getting into glass, just collecting and glass blowing. Just seeing some of his work a long time ago really inspired me to try to get into the craft. And it would be amazing to try to work with him.
Heck yeah, I completely agree. If you could describe the sound of glass cracking in one word, whether an emotional response or rhetorical or whatever response, what is it?
Frustration.
Cool. Hell yeah. What are your top 5 favorite colors in glass?
Be green, red, purple, blue, and white.
Cool. What is your worst injury in the studio?
I would be just really deeply gouging my my thumb with like a cracked off piece of blow tube. Just a really deep cut that I probably should have used stitches for, but I didn't. I use something called steri strips, which is like a kind of stitch replacement. It's like a type of a sterile tape that you can use to kind of tape your skin back together.
Yeah, they actually have like threads that are built into the tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Good stuff.
Hell yeah. So when you're in the studio, do you watch or listen to TV, listen to music, or do you do both?
Listen to music generally. Yeah, we don't really do TV too much here.
Hell yeah. What kind of music are you into?
Go between mostly hip hop and switch it to like rock and blues and jazz and stuff once in a while.
Nice. Is it American hip hop or Canadian?
American most of the time.
Yeah.
Just more classic hip hop than new school hip hop, I guess.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm not a big fan of the new stuff. Like the last 10 years of new stuff.
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you have any glass blowing themed tattoos?
I do not.
Okay.
No tattoos in general.
Oh, right on. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And my last question I always like to ask, which is slightly complicated and fun, is if you were stranded on an island, and any island of your choice, that had a glass studio on it and only supplied your gases, your kiln, and your torch, And the new item I'm throwing in there now is your glasses also, because everybody forgets to say glasses, since you got to be able to see what you're doing. So you have your torch, your gases, your kiln, and your glasses are now there waiting for you. And you had to make one item to somewhat survive on this island. What 5 items would you bring?
That's a difficult. It's like 5 items is like one length of tubing is one item or something.
You could bring a pallet of glass, man. That could count as one.
All right. Yeah, I'd say probably a pallet of 50 by 5 and a pallet of 10 mil rod. And then I guess pallet of 5 mil. It would all be pallets of glass, but it's just, yeah, you can make a lot of survival things out of just a whole lot of tubing and rod, stuff like that, like water collection systems and like a distillation device and all sorts of things just with a bunch of tubing and a bunch of rod.
Hell yeah. You have any hand tools you need? You got two more spots to fill.
Yeah, that would be probably tungsten tip tweezers, specific tweezers, real useful.
I love them.
And then probably just a nice size graphite paddle.
Hell yeah. What would you make? You're saying, so you'd make distilleries, like just different scientific mousetrap type things to survive?
Yeah, you could make like really, really sharp traps or whatever to set for like getting animals and food and stuff. And just collecting like water would be like a main source.
Yeah.
It's just like without drinking water, you're kind of not lasting very long.
Yeah, this is true. It'd be kind of crazy to come upon some crazy psyched out hippie been on a deserted island with a glass rod in his hand using it for a spear or some shit trying to catch fish. It'd be wild. But I'm sure it'd work though, man. You know, the glasses definitely could be made sharp like you're saying.
Yeah, you could make like traps like to put in the water out of rods and stuff. Like you catch like lobster traps or whatever. All sorts of different traps. You can make like traps for small game or just like little closing door things out of like some 10 mil rod. Like I guess you'd use like 20 mil rod or something. But I don't know, just melt it down.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be wild. It'd be a fun experiment.
Yeah.
To actually try to survive that way. Maybe the next reality show we'll have.
I've seen people dropped off with like on an island with just like a pallet of duct tape. It was pretty intense. They survived with just the duct tape.
No shit, that's crazy. Makes sense. I mean, fuck, man, the duct tape's like the best thing ever invented. Besides the arrow, of course. Hell yeah, dude. Well, it's been fun chatting with you, man. I'm definitely glad we got into this talk and, you know, not only talking about your glass life and what you've been doing in the educational side of things, but also the development of these torches and just where technology's going, man. It's exciting to see, you know, because, I mean, shit, this is just one extra thing to kickstart a whole new generation of concepts and ideas and torches and stuff, so.
Awesome. I'm glad you like the idea, and thank you very much for the opportunity to chat about it, for sure.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. So before we let you go, if you could give us a parting piece of advice and then also give us where we can find you out there in the world of cyberspace.
Parting piece of advice. Don't let anyone tell you what to make or how you should make your art. Just do what you think you should be doing, and don't worry what other people think, would be the piece of advice. And then the social media, I guess.
Yeah, social media or websites or any and all your stuff.
I guess Toronto Flameworking on Instagram. TorontoFlameworking.ca is the website there. and then Matty Phunk is me on Facebook.
Sweet. Yeah, man. So thanks again for coming on, and hope you all enjoyed this episode and interview chat here with Matty Phunk. And you can find him all the social feeds. We'll have all the links and notes in the show notes for you, as well as some videos with his torches and all this new stuff coming out from Nortel. Super exciting for all of us out there, especially if you're new and just getting started and have a small budget. For $1,000 now, you can literally get yourself set up with a badass torch and tools and equipment and be ready to go. So definitely stay tuned for that. And until next time, we'll talk to you on the next episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. Y'all take care. Take it easy. This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by The Flow magazine. Since its inception, the focus of The Flow has been to provide a bond among members of the lampworking community. In every issue, you can enjoy great content with the hottest artists and cutting-edge techniques using the latest industry products. These features, along with the continuation of our Women in Glass edition, Glasscraft Emerging Artist Awards, inspiring gallery showcases, dynamic general interest articles, as well as health and safety information, make The Flow the leading international lampworking journal. For more information or to subscribe to The Flow, go to theflowmagazine.com. That's theflowmagazine.com.